What's going on, guys? So we're going to be pulling the exhaust system off. This is going to give us access to the transmission, drive shaft, all of that good stuff. Start working on the swap. Tools we will be using: a 3/8 driver, a 10mm socket. That guy was used for removing the heat shielding. A 3/8 extension, a 13mm socket. That's used for removing the housing bolts for the rear muffler and for removing the hanger support for the exhaust. On some cars you might have a cross member underneath, like a brace or an X brace. Those bolts for mine were 17mm. If you do have an X brace, it might be a different size, so be sure to check out what size you have. If you don't have a cross member underneath the engine, then don't worry about it. Got a 15mm, so that is for removing the exhaust mid pipe to manifold nuts. There are 6 of them. Those guys need to come off. Got a 1/2 extension to get those mid pipe nuts off. It really helps. And we got a 1/2 impact, either electric or pneumatic. You can use a 1/2 wrench, but it's a little bit tough to break those guys loose. In addition to that, I used an electric 3/8 ratchet. You can use a pneumatic one or an electric, or you can just use the driver. That's basically just there to help things get off quicker. We use some PB blaster or a nut buster like that, basically just to help off the rust from the exhaust manifold nuts. They are on there pretty tight, and if they haven't been off in a while, they're probably going to put up a good fight. So aside from the standard tools, this job is going to be a lot easier, like most of them in the manual swap, if you have a homie to help you. This is young Arthur. He is the OG of car building, and he is going to be my helping hand today. It's going to make the job a lot easier to pull this exhaust system off. First things first, not all cars are going to have this, but like the convertible M3s and some other M3s do have this. That is this guy right here. This is a brace. Also, if you have an X brace under here, you're going to need to get that off to get the upper transmission out. There are a couple bolts. I believe it's different for the X brace, but just figure out what it is. There's one over here, and then there's one on the adjacent side. So just get that guy out of there so you'll be able to move the exhaust a lot easier. Arthur's going to work on that while I work on the exhaust hangers and the O2 sensors. So cruising underneath, that is the driver's side back tire right there. Here are the resonators, the mid pipe, all that good stuff. So right next to that, we have these little rubber hangers here. Now we're going to need to get these guys off to lower the exhaust system. I have a flathead screwdriver here, and we're just basically just going to pry them off. There's one, and there's the other. Alright, so next on the list we have the downstream O2 sensors. The plugins are right here, right next to the transmission crossmember, actually right next to the cat. So there are 2 of them, and these guys do pop down, sort of like that. But because there are 2, I do not want to get these guys mixed up. So I have a zip tie here. We're going to zip tie the wire on the O2 sensor side, just sort of hanging out there, and we're going to put another zip tie on the wire harness side. So now I can unplug them, and so that way I don't have to worry about losing which one goes where. So the one with the zip tie goes with the one with the zip tie, the one without it goes with the one without it. Just a simple little trick to make sure you don't get these guys switched up. Alright, aside from that, we have this wire harness box that runs all the way down. I'm going to take a little flathead screwdriver and just sort of pry on the little plastic tabs on the side. We're going to start at the top here, and we're basically just going to go down the line and unclip them. And this lower plastic harness section should be able to just pop right out. There we go. And then the wires for the O2 sensors will just sort of hang out free. And we can even clip this guy back in so we don't lose him. We'll just put him on 2 clips for now. There we go. Alright, so now we're going to crack the exhaust manifold to mid-pipe nuts. There are 3 right here. 1, 2, and then 3, and then there are also 3 up here on the second pipe, this pipe right here. Now these guys are going to be on there pretty freaking tight. They are a little bit rusted, and they have been on there for quite a long time. So I got some PB blaster. We're going to run these guys in real quick, spray it up, just to help loosen those guys up, so we're not totally fighting them to get them off. Now these guys are 15mm, and even with the PB blaster on there, we're still going to have to impact them off. So it is going to take a good bit of force. There's one right there, one right there, one on that side, and then the other 3 on the top of this pipe right next to it. So 1, 2, and 3 right there. So also, before we start ripping those off, I did put a jack underneath the exhaust pipe just so it doesn't fall down and hit Arthur in the face. I've had that happen to me before. It's not a lot of fun. So a couple of them are at a kind of a weird angle, so it helps to have something like a little bit of an extension on there. Really blast these guys off. Alright, so basically here we have an outside view of the mid-pipe to header where those guys bolt up. And if you have an impact or just a wrench with a 15 on it and an extension, you can get to these pretty easily. So there's your 1, 2, and then 3. This guy's a little bit trickier. Just slide it really close to that pipe, sort of on the inner side of that one, and then this guy is going to slide right between these two to get to that guy. So the extension really helps when getting these guys out. It's going to save your life basically. Alright, so the last nuts that we need to get off are this guy right here, and there's one on the adjacent side of the muffler. The whole rest of the exhaust system is not on the car anymore. It's just being held on by these two nuts. And they are 13 millimeters. Now, once this guy is off, the whole exhaust system is going to be out of the car and it's basically going to drop down. It's being held in the car right now because I do have a jack down underneath by that mid-pipe for when we took the top ones off. But I'm going to need to hold this up as I undo the last ones, and then the whole exhaust system is basically going to drop down. So I've got those two back ones loose. Now I'm going to undo them all the way, and at the same time Arthur's going to lower the jack. We're going to lower the entire exhaust system down, and we're basically going to drag it out from underneath the car here and put it off to the side. There's player number 2. Alright, now lower it. Alright, so the whole exhaust system is lowered. The O2 sensors do have these fun little clips, so make sure to get those guys off. Basically from here we're just going to drag the exhaust system out. We use this cart to put the exhaust system on it so we're not scraping it on the ground. And there it is, the final product. The exhaust system is now out of the car. So right next to the transmission pan on the underside, we have a heat shield right here, and then there's going to be one right back up here. We got to take that off too. This guy is held on by two 10mm bolts. He should pop right out. And then this second heat shield here is going to run all the way down basically to the transmission cross member. And there are 10mm bolts basically just lining both sides of it all the way down. We got to get all of those off to drop the heat shield down. It's also going to make it a little bit easier if I pull off these rubber grommets that hold the exhaust, pull the exhaust hangers off to get this heat shield out. Alright, so a quick note for the exhaust heat shield that's right next to this one. We had to pull that little bolt right there on the side of it. That guy right there had to come out to get this smaller heat shield off. Alright, last thing we have to take off is this guy right here. So this is the brace for the exhaust hangers. And basically we're going to need to get this guy out because the drive shaft is right on top of it. So it has 6 bolts and they are all 13mm. I don't think the bolts on these hold it in place, but you will have to take them off to get to the housing bolts behind it. Basically. Alright, our exhaust system is out. Thank you guys so much for watching. Keep it fresh and I will see you guys later.